that there's a lot to the idea of should, isn't there? Though that is actually the most transformational idea you can ever give. Now, there are three ways that it does this. That the idea of should, or the question of should, that will enable us in three ways to live much deeper, more powerful lives. So let me share with you today these three ways. So here's the first way that should can happen or have a transformational impact in your life. By asking the word should, you immediately put a pause upon life. Now, I don't mean that in a bad sense of pause, like you put your life on pause, like you're not living it out or anything like that. Far from it. You're actually living it more deeply. And here's how. If you start to ask the should question, like what should I believe? What should I know? How should I live? What should I be feeling at this very moment? And you look at that moment, you push the pause button. You push it enough that you can respond in a great way because your life is making this impact, right? So, and hopefully an impact for good. And so you say, what should I do at this very moment? Now, with that, then it will cause us or enable us to stop for a second and what we're doing to actually grapple with that great idea. Like, what should I say? Or how should I respond at this moment? What should I do at this very moment? Usually that happens because something has happened to us that causes for that decision or causes that decision to be made on the spot. But if we think ahead of where we're going with our days, when we're starting our days, and when we're actually thinking about how that we should live, then it gives us a pause. Like, how should I be this day? It's interesting that almost forms a prayer, doesn't it? It's a quick one. Like, what should I do? Like, give me wisdom right in this moment. And you're asking for wisdom to come to you. You're asking nature or God or life or some divine force to give you insight at that very moment into how you should live. And by doing that, you push the pause in this rampant, rapid time in which we live. And I'm not saying our lives are any more rapid than any other time of history, but they seem so. I mean, with the voluminous amounts of information, of ideas that come to us, whether it's through online activity, through the TVs we watch, through the screens that we're interacting with, whatever you could say, it all happens on a screen with all of that coming through. And the traffic situations that we face, the crowds that we face, the times that we just need to slow down, that's what that question of should does. It pauses. Now, with that pause comes an interesting idea, because you're holding your life just for a moment to figure out the way that you need to go. But with that, you become a model for others to live by. And you become, in a sense, aware of how you should live, in that you look towards an excellent model to be your model for how you should do the thing that you're called upon to do. And with that, so you become a model not only for others to follow, but also a model for yourself. Because you're all of a sudden aware of your life. You're all of a sudden aware that what you do impacts others. And of course we know this, but to be reminded of it, it's about that idea of pausing it for a moment, in other words, to get our bearings so that we can live life greatly. And in that way, we become a model. How many do you know actually go through life and all they're doing are reacting to things as they come about? Like it's the quick reaction to something. Something happens to them and then they react, or something is said to them, then they split second react. It's that way. If we put on the pause, that we become a model, because we're living the life the way that it should be lived. So it's like Henry David Thoreau's great quote, which I often go to: I went to the woods because I wanted to live deliberately. I wanted to live deep. It brings out that depth, doesn't it? It brings out wonder. It brings out wisdom, helps us to focus upon what is wild and of nature before us, because we're milking that moment. And by doing so, we're crafting our day. We're forming our day. So in a sense, we're creating the path that we're living. And that is phenomenal. But we're creating our own path for us to follow by simply asking the should. And in that way, we become a model. I want you to think about an excellent life that you know of. That excellent life that you see is someone that you can emulate, that you can imitate, and you think is really, truly living. They are crafting their way, that they are living in such a way that they are masters of that path that they are living in or living with, and the path that they are following. But it has to do with the should, doesn't it? So this powerful idea of number 2 is not only that we pause, but that we're forming our lives as a model. We're creating our own lives. And that's something that I wish for all of us. Not just simply this matter of reacting to things, but this way of crafting our lives that it really makes sense. And it goes down to that idea of excellence. Now, there's an old way of excellence here that I'm thinking of, that I would mention to you, that one of the ways of ethics that people have had, at least in the ancient world, and with the ancient world, you're thinking of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and in some cases, and I think I'm on good ground by saying this, although it might look to be otherwise, even Jesus himself, and great religious leaders all talk about this idea of how we should be, and they form models for us to follow. That is called the way of virtue ethics, or the way of excellence. The Greek have it in the way of arete. And so when you follow that, you're looking to that model. And so in a sense, they're creating the lives that they wish to live, and the impactful way that they wish to live that makes a great transformational impact in the way that others live as well. The third case, or the third way that should has for us, is that it enables us to leave a legacy. It enables us to leave a path for others to follow. I've mentioned it so many times in quoting it because I just simply love the quote. Ralph Waldo Emerson, great American thinker, said that to not go where the path leads us, but to go where there is no path and leave a trail for others to follow is what is implied. By living out the times of should, or asking of that question of should, we are living out that model way of leaving a pathway for others to follow, so that we are leaving a legacy. We have that model of life because we are living in that way, that others may follow us in the path that we're blazing forth, and blazing for others to follow along, even in the midst of the situations in which we live, which calls for us for these quick reactions and never really giving a thought to the way we should live. how we should treat our loved ones, how we should treat our fellow creatures, how we should be, what we should say, what we should do. In that way, we become the way that others can follow along, and we leave that legacy. I love the Native American thought that the indigenous people have for us, that we should do things 7 generations outward. We should envision what 7 generations, the impact that we will have in the things that we do. When we do that, that becomes, I don't know, it forms, I don't know how to describe it. It's so beautiful that we live this life that we're so proud of, that we can give to others ahead of us. Actually, to be quite somewhat controversial, that's the whole idea in living out a way that we can leave nature to be beautiful and to be wild for others to enjoy after us. It's always to do something with others in mind. And in that way, we look to their good interests as well. I mean, the golden rule has it, of course, to live in such a way that you would do to others what you would do to yourself. But said even more succinctly, maybe not to say that I'm bettering the golden rule, but we're to love others as we love ourselves. So it doesn't say to love ourselves and not love others, but to love others as we love ourselves. That's the great way to live. That's the way we're called upon. And by doing that, then we look to help others. And we look to share the love that we have in our hearts for our lives. And we know that that is true of them as well. So that will be true of our children, of our children's children, of our generations upon generations that will live after us. So maybe this idea of should is much more powerful than just a quick fix to the day in which you and I are living. It's actually a way of leaving a legacy. So going back over that, it helps you to put on the pause. It's the first. The second thing is it enables you to craft, to create your life the way that you want it, and thus you become a model for others to follow. Thirdly, in leaving that legacy. And that's the way that asking just simply the should question can do.